as known for The Office, and we'll have them direct a thriller because apparently it really works. A Quiet Place. So A Quiet Place is directed by John Krasinski. He also gets writing credit on the movie, along with a couple of other people. And it more or less revolves around this family in this house in the middle of what looks like a farm. And for a while now, they have dealt with this situation. The situation being it's kind of a post-apocalyptic scenario. You don't see much outside the farm, so you don't really know how the rest of the world's dealing with it. I can't glance at all the newspaper clippings. I saw some and get the gist. The gist being there are these aliens in the world, really feral aliens, and if you make a sound, they are drawn to sound. If they hear you, they will scamper over to you and tear you apart. They'll shred you. So it's this family trying to sneak around, going about their day-to-day, not making sound. Those sounds probably will happen. And we've now set the stage for a very effective thriller. I call it a thriller. I know some people are like, I don't like horror movies. Not as much a horror movie as it is a thriller. Very fine line between thriller and horror movie. I feel like this movie really walks it well. But everyone in this movie is great. John Krasinski and Emily Blunt. There's a scene in particular where I'm like, Emily Blunt's crushing it right now. You even have a couple of kids in the movie. Sometimes that is just your DOA at that point. Not these kids. These kids are great. And I'm kind of doing a flyby talking about, oh, they were all good in the movie. But really, they're great in the sense that one very huge part of communication is generally speaking gone in this movie. So everything they have to do, they have to convey without words. All the fear, all the intensity, any of the emotions, their face, their body language, these are the tools because their voice, it just can't happen. They can't talk. They do sign language in the movie and that's the primary form of communication, but let me just say that. This is a thriller based on life and death in which the most intense of conversations are conveyed through sign language. And it completely works. That's not very conventional. They all do a fantastic job operating in this world this movie has brought you into. Immediately, this movie brings you in on this world where you, as the audience, you feel like you can barely breathe. You definitely can't make any sounds. There were these people behind me, they were talking as the movie was starting. I was like, oh my God, if you talk in this movie. No, immediately you get that feeling of, oh, we can't make sounds. And the theater shut up. Even people who coughed, they were like, I was like, nope, you died. Not quite enough. But it's quite a thing when you can make the audience really feel like they're in the movie to the point where it's like making any sounds whatsoever. People like crinkle in their wrappers to get their candy like, And it does it so effectively because it illustrates how easy it is to make sound. Because Homo sapiens are not stealthy. The human race, we're loud, we're clunky, we're not quiet. That's why stealth is a skill that you have to master. I drop little knickknacks and things all the time, but if you do that in this world, you die. A big thing this movie illustrates is how adaptable people are. You will adapt to survive in most situations. And if you don't adapt, good news, you get to die early. So you get to see how they get food. You get to see their operations. It makes the world feel very lived in. In a movie like this or any apocalyptic type setting, when it revolves around a family or a group of people, and they don't really show how they've survived, if I allow myself to pick it apart, I have to ask the question, like, how have you survived this long? This movie shows how they've survived this long. It shows they do have a system. Doesn't mean this movie doesn't drag on in parts, but for my first watch, I was still glued. I was like, yeah, show us the world. And really, this movie makes you reflect on human beings in general. How much we rely on noise for communication, for a release. I don't know how this movie got conjured up, but the fact that they're in a very intense scenario, I almost feel like someone was in a very intense scenario and they just had to release it. They had to scream, they had to have a big cry, and they thought, what if you couldn't do that? And that's what you really feel in this movie. No one can cry, no one can scream, no one can take a stick and smack a tree with it. So all the pain, anger, and emotions this family's dealing with, they haven't had a release. That is straight up a version of hell. They're in hell. And since they're feeling that, this movie does a good job of bringing you into the movie, you start feeling it. Every intense scenario, and there are a few of them, you don't have release. You don't go, whew. You actually do the, and you stop breathing. This movie really preys on your fight or flight, and you just freeze in place. Gotta hand it to a movie for doing that. I mean, when you first meet the family, having all the noise go out when the camera's on the girl, and having the ambient noise come back when the camera's on the son, is genius in illustrating a couple things. Not only one of the things about one of the characters, but also illustrating the contrast between quiet and sound. Thus, you realize how noisy the world is. Thus, you realize how hard it is to be quiet. Thus, you realize the danger. Where I start to roll my eyes are moments where I'm like, all right, I've seen this before in movies, and it was just as cliche there. Whether it be a particular scenario, I'm not going to spoil anything. There's a scenario that takes longer than the 10 minutes it actually took. And anytime you have the bloody hand slapping onto the window, I'm like, that's just, how many times has that happened? We'll chalk up one more. Guys, in the end, A Quiet Place was really unique. My biggest flaw in the movie is just simply where the movie ends. Not that the movie ends, but where the movie ends, where they decided to go, you know what, that's the end credits. Just didn't like it, gonna keep it vague, but personally with me, did not dig that choice. But in the end, I thought John Krasinski crushed it. Everybody in the movie did a great job. I was at the edge of my seat, I was white knuckling it, and I will say A Quiet Place is definitely worth watching and definitely worth buying on Blu-ray. It's one of those movies you watch, you're like, I want my friends to watch this movie. Even if they just watch it once, I want them to watch it once. Alright, so A Quiet Place, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know. And if you're subscribed to me, ring that bell icon. Per YouTube's algorithm, it does help me out. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.